I try to spend the month of January focusing on things that bring me joy, and nothing brings me more joy than books. I read 8 books in the month of January, 3 children's books, 2 graphic novels, and 3 young adult books. I'm so glad I could dedicate more time to reading such great stories in January. Let's start with children's books. The first book I read this year was The Eternity Elixir by Frank L. Cole, which is the first in the Potion Master series. It follows 12-year-old Gordy, who is one of the elite few who know of the secret society of Potion Masters because his mother works for Brew, the board of ruling elixirists worldwide, and has been training him for years in the art of potion making. And as it turns out, Gordy is a bit of a prodigy. So when he is mistakenly sent a mysterious package containing the extremely rare Eternity Elixir, it becomes his responsibility to protect it, because in the wrong hands, it could destroy the world as we know it. Gordy, his family, and his best friends work together to stop the mysterious forces trying to take this powerful potion. It is a delightful fantasy story for children. It does fall into a few tropes, and at times it feels like the characters aren't fully fleshed out, but all in all, it was a fun and quick read for me. I give it 3 out of 5 potions. The second book I read was Dragon Pearl by Yoon Ha Lee, which is steeped in Korean culture and mythology. The story centers on Ming, a young fox spirit who is not allowed to use any of her magical abilities, like shapeshifting or her ability to charm those around her, and instead must appear human at all times. She desperately wants to leave her impoverished planet and the rules of her family behind in order to follow her older brother June into the space forces, which is the equivalent to an intergalactic military. When word arrives that June has deserted in order to search for the Dragon Pearl, an ancient mystical artifact rumored to have tremendous power, Min just knows that there's no way that he would ever do that, so she decides to run away from home and clear his name herself. This girl uses her magic and talent for engineering to go on an intergalactic adventure with pirates and ghosts and other magical creatures as she works to solve the mystery of what happened to her older brother. The story completely sucked me in, and I love some good Asian representation. I completely fell in love with the story. I give it 4 out of 5 foxes. The last children's book I read was Wizard for Hire by Obert Sky, who is one of my favorite authors. Wizard for Hire is about Ozzy, a young boy whose scientist parents were kidnapped right in front of him. He isn't sure where to turn to or who he can trust, and he is afraid that he will never be able to find his parents. So when he sees an ad in a local newspaper reading a Wizard for Hire called 555 SPEL, he is intrigued. He has heard about wizards before in the books his parents left behind, books like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and he knows they can use magic to help people like him. But he has some doubts, because he is not entirely sure if wizards are really, well, real. And after Ozzy meets the wizard Labyrinth, Rin for short, he remains unsure, because Rin does dress like a wizard, and he does seem to want to help him, but he doesn't have a magic wand or say any spells, and maybe all of those unexplained coincidences that happen around him are really just coincidences. Still, with a wizard and a robotic raven on his side, surely he can find out what really happened to his parents. The story really brought me to a place of nostalgia for the fantasy childhood that I felt like I left behind, but it still had its bleaker moments, reminding me that if magic does exist, it is just out of reach for me. And it feels like it was trying to prove the opposite thing. It feels like the book was trying to prove that magic is everywhere in the world if you just believe in it and look for it. It was a highly captivating story, and I give it 4 out of 5 pointed wizard hats. Let's move on to graphic novels, of which I read 2. I'm still reading Paper Girls, and I managed to borrow volume 5 of the series. Paper Girls is written by Brian K. Vaughan, and he has done some truly remarkable and weird work in collaboration with Cliff Chang and Matthew Wilson. As the Paper Girls travel to the distant future and learn the truth behind the mysterious old-timers and their war, this 5th volume largely centers around the question of fate, and if there's anything we can do to escape it. I mean, is there really anything we can do to change the future? To change our future? Is going to a time where cancer is cured enough to stop you from developing cancer? And can we change when and how we die if we just have enough knowledge about how it happens? Or are our deaths and our lives and all of our loves preordained in some way? Well, one thing I know is that these girls are going to keep fighting through time and space in order to find a way back to their home of 1988, no matter what fate puts them through. I give this story 4 out of 5 newspapers. January also had me starting to read a new series when I picked up Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, Volume 1, Hooked on a Feline, which is written by Kate Leth. I loved this book. Kate Leth does a really good job of bringing together the older Patsy Walker books with her adventures as Hellcat. Some have accused the books as being too cute, too cheerful. but I just thought they were fun. Patsy is trying to reinvent herself after being suddenly fired and homeless. She is trying to start a business as a sort of temp agency for superpowered people. She wants to help people who recently acquired powers and to help people find good ways to use their powers if they don't want to get into the whole good versus evil mega showdown that happens in New York every year. She's trying to make rent, fight crime, and stop the reprinting of the comics her mother used to make about her life before she died. This book is cute, and the character is cheerful, but the book mostly just felt real to me. I feel like a lot of comics try to feel gritty in order to gain respect, and so many comics just feel ungrounded from my reality in some way, but Patsy Walker felt like a person who was just doing her best, and I love that. Patsy Walker just felt like one of my friends who just so happens to have a job where she occasionally dodges bullets and fights as guardians. Totally normal. I'm giving this book 5 out of 5 cats, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. Last genre of the video, young adult fiction. The first book I want to talk about is Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. This is a sequel to Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda, and in this book, Leah Burke, awesome and angst-filled drummer of an all-girl band, is put right in the center. Leah's always felt like an outsider in her friend group. She's the only child of a young single mom and has less class privilege than quite a few of her peers. And she's bisexual, but nobody really knows about that yet. She hasn't told any of her friends that she's bi, not even her very best friend, the openly gay Simon Spear. And feeling like an outsider gets to be a lot when her friend group starts to fracture in her senior year of high school as breakups and college and prom start to pile on top of each other and lead to tension-filled situations. Leah on the Offbeat reminded me a lot of my own time in high school, minus the part where I had the vocabulary to actually be capable of coming out. And honestly, I loved the whole book. It was somehow both angst-filled and lighthearted at the same time, and it just gave me so much hope. I give this book 5 out of 5 drum sets. I also read The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee, which is the sequel to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This piece of historical fiction takes us on a whirlwind adventure as we follow Felicity Montague, who has exactly 2 goals: avoid a marriage proposal and enroll in medical school. Unfortunately, her talent, intellect, and passion aren't enough to earn her a spot in medical school, according to any of the all-male administrators who think that medicine is a man's profession. But when she hears that an old friend of hers is marrying a famous doctor who she happens to idolize, she becomes convinced that he will see her value and allow her to study under him. It's just that she has no money to pay for her journey to the wedding, which is taking place in Germany. Lucky for her, a mysterious woman of color is willing to pay for Felicity's journey in exchange for being able to pose as her maid. And Felicity, well suspicious of this deal, agrees to it. And she ends up on a quest with 2 amazing, smart, capable, and interesting women who are nothing like her, but also so much like her as they travel through Europe, Africa, and the Atlantic Ocean to fulfill their scientific curiosity and prove that they are not just as good as, but better than some of the men that are trying to stop them from pursuing their passions and using their talents. It was a wonderful story that just goes to show that there is no wrong way to be a woman. And it had some pretty good ace representation as well. I would give this book 5 out of 5 pirate ships. The last book I read was Geekerella by Ashley Poston. And as someone who grew up watching and rewatching every version of Cinderella available, this is the version of the story that I've always been looking for without ever realizing that I was looking for anything. Elle Whittimer lives and breathes Starfield, the series she grew up watching with her late father. So when she sees a cosplay contest for a new Starfield movie, she has to enter, and she is determined to win. The prize is an invitation to the Excelsicon cosplay ball and a meet and greet with Darian Freeman, the actor slated to play Federation Prince Carmendor in the reboot. And well, Darian Freeman used to live for cons before he was famous. Playing Carmendor is all he has ever wanted, but the Starfield fandom has written him off as just another dumb heartthrob who wouldn't know the first thing about geek culture or fandom, and as Excelsicon draws near, Darian feels more and more like a fake until he meets Elle. The story is part romance, part love letter to nerd culture, and it is the perfect fairy tale for anyone who believes in the magic of fandom. This is the book that I've been looking for my entire life, and I never knew it. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 pumpkins. Those are all the books that I read in the month of January. 8 books puts me well on my way to my reading goal of 75 books this year. Please tell me what you're reading now down in the comments, because you know I love a good recommendation. And if you want to see more from me, you can subscribe, watch another video of mine, or support me on Patreon. And hey, I love you.